Hi everybody, in this video we're going to take a look at how to create a simple user form in Microsoft Excel. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a little email form just like you see here on my screen. And we're going to have a few elements in it. We're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to have obviously a few text fields here for first name, last name, and email. And then of course a button. So a couple of things we're going to do. We're going to create the form itself. We're going to name the form, or give it a caption to say email form. We're going to create labels. There's 3 labels here for 3 text boxes that we have to create as well. And we're going to create an enter button. So it's going to be pretty simple. And without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first things first, what we want to do is go to our Developer tab into the Visual Basic Editor in the Code group. Alternatively, you can press Alt F11. It will open up the VB editor for you. And then first thing I want to point out here is in our workbook here, our VBA project, we have nothing but sheet 1 and this workbook. So what we need to do is we need to right click and go down to insert user form, or alternatively we can click on insert up in the menu bar or the toolbar, and then go down to user form there. When we click on that, we get our first user form. It's just a generic user form 1. And we can resize this by grabbing with our mouse and doing that kind of thing. If your toolbox does not show, like if I were to close this, you just need to go to View and then down to Toolbox and click that, and it should appear for you. And these are all the elements we're going to be using to insert into our user form. But the first, a couple things I want to point out is now that we have inserted the user form, it's here in our VBA Project Explorer. And then when we click on the user form element itself, we get to see its properties. And the first thing I want to do is change the name property. And when I do that, I'm going to call this email form. And when I change that, hit enter, notice the only thing that happens is it just changes the name of the form here in our Project Explorer. And then if I want to change this piece up here, I've got to go to caption, and then I'm going to change that and type in email form. And a couple of things here. First thing to notice is for our name property, there can be no spaces, so it's just got to be one long word. But for our caption, it can contain spaces, so that's what we've done there, and that's why those are different. So the next thing we want to do is we want to take a look at our other elements. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to add some labels. So if we go to this A icon, we'll notice that in the tooltip shows us it's a label. So I'm going to click on that, and then these crosshairs should appear, and you can left click and drag that element, and it comes up with a generic label 1 caption. So a couple things for properties I want to do. I want to change this name, and this name is going to be the object name in our VBA code when and if we use it. So the naming convention for labels is LBL, at least the naming convention I use, and I'm going to put LBL first name. And then down in the caption, I'm going to type first name, just like I want it to appear. When I hit enter, you can see that it has now changed the caption. So to quickly add a couple more labels, instead of going back to the toolbox, I'm just going to select that label, and I'm going to Control-C, Control-V, put that up under first name. This is going to be my last name label, and then Control-V again, and then this will be for my email label. So I can go here. Again, I need to change that name LBL, and this is going to be last name, and then change the caption to match. And now when I go to this here, I'm going to change this one to LBL email. This will be my email label. All right, so we've got those three squared away. The next thing I want to do is add the text boxes that go with these labels. And so that element is to the right of the label icon. It's got this little AB here, and then when you hover over it, it'll show you the text box in the tooltip. So I click on that, and I'll kind of follow the same procedure as dragging that out, that element out, and I'll give it a little bit of length there, and then we'll leave that there. So I'll now just Control C and then Control V, and actually do that twice real quick, and then I'll move this, kind of position it where I want it, and then we'll do a little cleanup here. So a couple things I want to do is actually I'm going to select all of my elements and match the font size. I want to bring a bigger font, but what I'm going to do is hold the Shift key down while I click on all of these, and notice they're all selected. And now I can go into the Properties window here, and I can find Font. And then when I see this little button with the three dots, I'm going to click on that. And then when my font dialog appears, I'm going to go over here to the size column. And I'm just going to click on 12, and I'll click OK. And notice how it changes the font size for all those. So I can change them individually, but when you're working, to save a little time, if I was going to change all of them, I'm just going to select them all and do it at the same time. And then that way, when I type in, or the user types in text into the text boxes, it'll be the same size font as well. So a couple things, let's clean this up just a tad. Oops, I think I just added more work there. So I'm going to clean up these labels a little bit, and then bring these text boxes in a little tighter. Let's look a little more professional. And then let me select these, and I can resize these all at the same time if I highlight them or I select them all using the Shift key. So that looks pretty good. So we've got these guys. Oh, actually, I need to go back and name these text boxes. So just like we did with the labels, I'm going to use a naming convention that's TV, and then I'm just going to go with first name. I think some people use the naming convention TXT, but I use TB, and then there's obviously no caption for these. So I'm going to go TB, last name. And these are really important names for the objects, because these are the text box objects we're going to pass values from into a worksheet that's going to basically serve as a database worksheet that we can add these values to our list of users. So, all right. So next thing we need to do is add a button, an inner button. So that element is the command button, and that's the icon underneath the label icon, and it says command button there in the tooltip. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to drag this about right there, like that. I like that. Okay, and it comes up with a generic command button caption. So my naming convention for command buttons is CMD, and then we'll just make that enter. And then I'm going to change the caption, of course, to match and be appropriate. And then I guess I could have waited until we had added this element to change font sizes, but I'm going to go here to font. I'll click and select the command button so its property is showing, or properties are showing, and then I'll change that font like we did before on the other elements. So looking pretty good there. Looking pretty similar to what we saw earlier in the video. And we'll leave it at that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do real quick before the end of the video is we need to code a sub procedure that will show this user form, and so we can see it rather than just in design mode. We want to see it in actual active mode, or production mode, if you will. So I'm going to insert a module and I'm going to call this sub show show form. We'll just go with that. And then our object is email form, and then the method is going to be show. And you notice that when I start typing show comes up in the IntelliText. So I can hit tab, and we're good there. And so when I run this, it's going to make our user form appear. And so of course we can type in some text here. Why is that going? Uh-oh, we have a problem. All right, so one of the things that I noticed here in this form, which is a little bit unusual, but it's a good, it's actually a good point. So if I type in a name and I press tab, I'm going to assume it's going to go to the last name text box, but instead it goes to the email text box. And the reason it does that is we've got to go back into our properties on our text boxes. So if I close that and go back into our Visual Basic Editor here where our email form is showing, if I select the first name text box, TB first name, if I go down in the properties and go to tab index, it shows a tab index of 6. And sometimes this is just arbitrary. But anyway, that tab index is 6. If I go down to the last name, the tab index is 4. And if I go down to email, the tab index is 3. So since 3 is less than 4, the next tab it's going to go to is the lowest possible number, which is 3. So we just want to fix this. I can go into tab index on first name, and I'm just going to type 1. And then, actually, I believe I could type 0. I think the index start theoretically or technically start at 0. I'm going to go to tab index on last name, type a 2. And then tab index for email is going to be 3. And this should fix my issue. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back to the module, and I'm going to run this, and I'm going to go about my business, typing again tab. And then, of course, now everything tabs in order. And then, of course, the enter button, you can see it works, but since there's no code, it's not actually doing anything. So there you have it, simple user form. In the next video, we'll look at how to start developing some code to make this form be functional.
Thanks everybody for watching. Please take a minute to like and subscribe, and be sure to check us out at theaccidentalexcellist.com.